We don't want to be all up on their butts. Now, if you look above your head, you can see our animal spotting guide. Feel free to use that to help identify any wildlife that we may see out there today. Make sure those masks are fully pulled up above our noses, friends. Make sure those masks are up above our noses. Thank you. Now, raise your hand if it's your first time safaring with us today. A few of us will welcome. Terribly. Once we get the all clear from our wording, we are going to enter into the reserve. This first section that we are entering into is called Little Eatery Forest. The animals here do like to hang out in the trees and bushes, so we want to keep our eyes peeled in those areas. Feel free to take as many photos and videos as you want throughout our tour. We do welcome that. Just make sure you hold on to those phones and cameras very tightly. Already a lot of activity as soon as we enter. First thing you're going to see is all the way on our right hand side there is the okapi with those striped legs. It often gets confused for being related to zebras. They're actually the closest known relatives to giraffes. We share the same shape skull and the same prehensile tongue, that really long tongue that allows them to reach up into the trees and grab their food. And directly next to us, this is a bongo. Bongos are sometimes also called the ghosts of the forest because they do like to hang out deep within the bushes. There are a few more there on our left. And they have those really long horns that allow them to get deep into that underbrush without getting tangled in there. As you can see, these animals are very good at kind of blending into their surroundings and camouflaging. That helps keep them protected from any predators. Up there on that hill, that is a greater kudu. They are one of the tallest antelopes in Africa with heights of about 55 inches at their shoulders. And I can tell that one is a female because she doesn't have any horns. So the males will have horns that usually stretch about 6 feet in length. And then against this rock wall here, there is a black rhino. Oh, wow. Yes, that's a black rhino there. You can tell it's a black rhino by looking at its jaws because it has a very pointed shaped mouth, kind of triangular in shape. Black rhinos are actually critically endangered, so there's only about 5,000 of them left in the world, which is really unfortunate. They don't have any natural predators out there in the wild, however, they are poached by humans for their horns. So their horns in some countries are considered to have medicinal properties, which is completely false. They're actually just made of keratin. So it's the same thing that our fingernails and our hair are made of. So we work with a lot of different conservation efforts to help protect those rhinos from those poachers. Here to our left, these birds are saddle-billed storks. They get their name because if you look at their bills, they have that yellow coloring on them. That's shaped like an English riding saddle. And they're pretty tall. They can stand up to 5 feet tall and have a wingspan of up to 6 feet long. And unlike most other birds, they actually don't like to flock together. They're pretty solitary and very territorial. So they typically will hang out by themselves. Sometimes they'll hang out in pairs like that. And it's believed that when those storks pair, they pair for life. That's pretty cute, right? Yeah. We are now entering into Safi River Valley. It is home to a more aquatic ecosystem, so we're going to want to keep our eyes peeled on the waterways. Oh, as soon as we enter, if you look to the right, there are a couple of Nile hippopotamus down there.
They're in the water. I got them.
Hippos are some of the largest animals in Africa. They weigh roughly about 5,500 pounds. So very, very large. They actually are very territorial as well. So not only will they use their weight to help protect themselves by kind of charging at different animals, but they also have incredibly large incisors, about 18 inches long, which is pretty crazy seeing that they only eat vegetation that are found along the water's banks. And although we see them underwater like we just did, they actually can't breathe underwater. They just hold their breath for extended periods of time, about 5 to 8 minutes. Now these white and gray birds that we see all around these island areas, those are pink-backed pelicans. They get their name because during mating season, the males will actually get a pink coloring on their back, and that's what helps attract the females to them.
Look at these birds. These look like I've never seen them.
I haven't either.
On the banks on the right, or sorry, the left, these are Nile crocodiles. Nile crocodiles are the largest in the crocodilian family found in Africa. They can reach lengths of about 16 feet long and 500 pounds. And if you look at this one all the way to our left here, that's the easiest way to tell differences between alligators and crocodiles. Make sure we are staying seated, guys. Staying seated and put that mask up on your face. males do have an incredibly powerful bite. They have about 2,000 pounds of force per square inch on their jaws, which means they can easily crunch through any bone, including that of larger prey like zebra and wildebeest that hang out near the watering holes. Make sure our masks are pulled all the way up above our nose, friends, all the way up above your nose. It's only 20 minutes on this journey together. It's not very long at all. Once you're off our safari, you're good to take them back off in the parks. We are now entering the savannah. The savannah is home to some of the most well-known animals in the world, including animals like giraffes, zebras, and lions.
They were big, weren't they?
Yeah, we can see some of them from here, but we'll get a little bit of a closer view in just a sec. Looks like we have a little traffic jam, so we are just holding for that. On our right, as soon as we enter in, there is a Hartman Mountain zebra here to our right. Hartman Mountain zebras, although they look very similar to horses, actually don't make similar sounds at all. They don't make neighing sounds like we assume they would. They actually make more grunting sounds. And if you look at their nose and their muzzle, that's how you're able to tell the base coloring of that zebra. So that one there, I believe, had a black nose, which means it is black with white stripes. All zebra patterns are different, very much like human fingerprints, and they're actually able to tell each other's patterns from a great distance, and that's how they're able to find each other out there in the wild. Those Hartman Mountain zebras have what's called a dewlap, so if you look at its neck, it has kind of saggy skin there. That dewlap allows them to keep nice and cool. It helps regulate their body temperature, which is something you'll hear a lot of in these animals here in the savannah. We have just a little bit of a traffic jam, so we're just waiting for some of our friends to get moving as well. Make sure those masks are fully above our nose, friends. On our left, there's a pack of African wild dogs. You can see them kind of hanging out in the shade of that tree there. They're also sometimes called African painted dogs because their coats look like someone splashed paint all over them. They're actually the most successful hunters in all of Africa. So they live in packs of about 5 to 15 wild dogs. And because of that, they're able to run their prey down to exhaustion. They're kind of all hanging out there on the left by that little tree. And within their pack, they actually have an alpha couple, so an alpha female and male, and they do primarily most of the breeding for them. And unlike most other pack animals, it's actually the females that will leave in order to form their own packs. Now back here on the left, these are sable antelope. They're known for those really long horns there that help keep them protected from any predators. Animals even like those wild dogs and lions are typically hesitant to hunt them because they know if they jump on their backs, they're most likely going to get hurt by that. And they're actually the emblem of the Harambe National Reserve. Yeah, right here on our left, there's a herd of wildebeest. Wildebeest live in very large herds in Africa. They can reach herd sizes of about 1.5 million wildebeest or more. And they're one of the largest migrating herds in the world. So they will migrate anywhere for about 500 to 1,000 miles annually. And they do that in order to find their water source nearby, since it does get very dry in the savannah.
That's what they naturally eat. But there's so many of them.
On either side of us, there are these really tall termite mounds. Termite mounds are made of dirt, dung, and saliva, so termites get all of those materials, to build these homes for themselves. And once these mounds sit in the sun after being created, they will harden almost like a concrete material. And tall animals like elephants and giraffes will use them sometimes as scratching posts. They'll lean their body against it and rub against it in order to scratch. And once they get a little bit shorter like this, animals like zebra and antelope will use it as a lookout point in order to get a little bit of a height advantage to look out further into the savannah. There are a couple more zebra that joined our friends back there. We did just get a new baby zebra born yesterday on the reserve. However, it's not out. It's spending some time with mom. Yeah, the baby probably won't be out for at least a few weeks. We try to keep them mostly just spending time with their mom. That way they can make sure they get all the time with her that they need. Plus, babies tend to be pretty skittish. And although a lot of our adult animals that have spent time on our reserve are pretty used to us, we don't want to startle any of the babies.
That zebra over here.
Looks like there's a lot more animal movement straight ahead. These smaller animals that are a little bit closer to us on the right, these are springboks. They have that white underbelly and that light brown top coat. They're actually the national animal of South Africa. They get their name from their great ability to spring. So from standing, can jump about 6 feet up in the air and 13 feet forward. And they're also one of the fastest animals in the world. They can run at about 55 miles per hour. So just shy of the speed of a cheetah, if you think of it that way. And then just past them, there's also an Ankoli cattle. You can tell by its really long horns, which we'll see in just a second. Ankoli cattle is sometimes also called Watusi cattle, after the Watusi tribe that domesticated them. They're one of the only domesticated animals we have here on our reserve. And they have those incredibly long horns, about 6 feet from tip to tip. And those horns have blood vessels inside, so they're actually hollow inside and have a honeycomb-like structure. And that allows their blood to get circulating through there in order to, again, regulate their temperature, which is very important for these savanna animals. And not only that, but we see a whole bunch of giraffes. So a group of giraffe like this is called a tower. It's a tower of giraffes. It looks like there's one sitting down, which is actually a pretty rare sight. Giraffes will spend most of their life standing up. So it's pretty rare to see them sitting like that. That means they feel very safe and that they don't hear anything coming from nearby. Giraffes are the tallest animal in the world. They can reach heights of about 16 to 20 feet tall. Even newborn giraffes are already born at about 6 feet. And they have those incredibly powerful legs, and that's what helps keep them protected. So what they'll do is they'll kick any predators that come after them nearby. Even baby giraffes are able to start using their legs within an hour of birth, and that helps keep them protected. Now we can tell this is a Maasai breed of giraffe because if you look at their coats, they don't seem to have any regular pattern to them, and the spots individually are pretty jagged around the edges, very much like puzzle pieces. And that's one of their biggest distinguishing features between the different breeds of giraffe. Yeah, they're not very graceful looking actually, even if you saw the one running earlier, since they have such long limbs. As we come through straight ahead, it looks like there's going to be an African elephant on our right-hand side. There are also some mandrill monkeys up here on the hill. Now mandrills are easy to identify because if you look at their faces, they have that bright red and blue coloring on their face. Looks like one of the younger ones is getting in trouble. They're actually the largest monkeys in the world. They can weigh roughly about 100 pounds. And then you can see that African elephant there on the right. One easy way to identify an African elephant between the two breeds is by their ear shape. Their ears are actually very similarly shaped to the continent of Africa. The natural habitats of these mandrills and African elephants are very rich in a metallic ore called coltan, and that's what's used in a lot of electronics today. So if we want to help protect the habitat of these wildlife, one thing we can do that's super easy is just by recycling our electronics. By doing that, we help keep those habitats protected from the potential of being overmined, since that coltan can be reused after being recycled. Now, since that African elephant was by itself, it's safe to assume that that was a male. At around 15 years old, the males will typically leave the greater herd in order to live more independently. Sometimes they'll form small bachelor herds of about 2 to 3 other elephants. And although they do kind of spread off, they don't stay too far away from the greater herd, one for breeding purposes, and two because that greater herd knows where all the food and water source is, so they always want to stick around for that. Now, elephants live in a matriarchal society, so it is the oldest female elephant who is the leader of that herd. And she's the one who determines the migration patterns, as well as the acceptable behavior within the herd itself. Looks like we're going to see some over there on the left. Folks, I'm going to remind you one more time, make sure those face coverings are completely over our noses. When the matriarchs of the herd gets to be of a certain age, they typically will take another female elephant under their wing and start teaching them everything they know in order to replace them eventually. And that's one way that elephants are able to communicate throughout different generations. And elephants are greatly skilled at communicating, so we can see a whole bunch of them back there. Not only do they use their trumpeting sound from their trunks to communicate with each other, but they've actually learned to communicate through facial expression and body language. And the way that I personally think is cool is that they communicate is they can communicate through vibrations that they can sense in the bones of their feet. So depending on the movement of the herd or any low grunts or rumbles that the elephants make, they can sense that vibration through their feet. And that's how they can communicate with one another. Now, elephants are often poached for their tusks, which are made of ivory. So it's very highly valued on the black market because it is an illegal trade. However, that is part of the elephant's teeth, so it is their incisors, which makes it very important to them. They really need that in order to survive healthily. Elephants will use their trunks quite often to feed themselves, get themselves water, and those trunks are made of about 150,000 muscles in there. On this island here to our left, this is a flock of greater flamingo. The greater flamingo is the tallest in the flamingo family. They can reach heights of about 5 feet tall. And they're actually also the lightest pink in coloring. So all flamingos get their color from the food that they eat. So they'll eat brine shrimp, which is very rich in beta-carotene, and that's what turns them pink. So if you look out there, we do have a couple of younger flamingos that are a little white or slightly gray still. And once they ingest enough of that brine shrimp, they'll turn that wonderful pink color that we know them to be. I can see one way up in the hill, so it's a little hard to see, but there's a cheetah hanging up there. The ones up ahead are a little bit easier to spot, so we'll go ahead and look at them. But cheetahs are the fastest moving land animal. They move about 0 to 60 in 3 seconds flat. Yeah, it's like way up in the hill by one of the trees. They're very good at blending into their surroundings. Their bodies are very much built for that speed, so they're very sleek and slender. And they have these incredibly long tails. You can see a little bit easier right here on the side. Those tails help them to change direction while they're running, very similar to rudders on boats. Yeah, there are some back there as well. Now, cheetahs are actually daytime hunters, which is pretty unusual for big cats and large predators. Most other predators hunt at night. And if you look at the cheetah's face, they actually have black markings around their eyes. And that allows them to do that daytime hunting successfully by reflecting the sunlight away from it. Very similar to like if we see baseball players rubbing that grease on their cheeks to reflect that sunlight. It's the same exact thing for those cheetahs. And it helps lessen their competition from some other large animals like these lions straight ahead. So on our left, there's a male lion snoozing up there on that copy system. Of course, we can tell it's a male because he has that beautiful mane there. Lions live in groups called pride, and within the pride, it's actually the female lions that do the hunting. The males will stay back in the territory and protect it and protect their cubs. Lions are those nocturnal hunters, so they will hunt at night. They have about 20 times better vision at night than humans do. Straight ahead of us on the right, there are a few white rhinos, and then hanging out here in the sand, this is a bontebok. Unfortunately, bonteboks can't be found in the wild anymore due to overhunting for their coats. Their coats have kind of a purplish sheen on them, so they made it very highly valued, even though it was an illegal trade. So you can only find them on reserves, much like our own. And then we have a white rhino directly next to us.
Hey, buddy.
Now there are a couple ways we can tell the difference between white and black rhinos. One is their size. So white rhinos are a little bit bigger. They weigh roughly about 4,000 to 5,000 pounds. Oh, there, you can see that male a little better. See if I can speed up while he's still up. There's a female laying right next to him as well. Oh, he just woke her up.
They're all up.
Lion roars can actually be heard for about 5 miles away from him, but they are a very low sound, so sometimes you have to really keep your ears out to listen. Now, as I was saying about those rhinos, because we're going to see another view of them in just a sec, there's a couple ways we can determine them between black rhinos, and there's a warthog down here on the left as well. Warthogs are the largest burrowing animal. We have those extremely large burrows that you can see, and they've actually learned to create burrows out of pre-existing ones from other animals. They're the only animals to do that. Makes their job a little easier. Now, aside from their size, you can also tell by looking at their jaw shape. So if you look at the jaw shape of the white rhino, they're actually pretty broad and square, versus the black rhino that was a little more triangular. And that's actually where they get their name. Their name in Afrikaans is Vite, V-I-T-E, and that means wide. It just got mistranslated to meaning white. And then off to the right, there was also an ostrich hanging out there. Ostriches are the world's largest bird. They have those incredibly long legs, and at the end of those legs, super sharp claws. And those claws allow them to stay protected out there in the wild. Ostriches have extremely powerful picks to go with those claws. They are actually able to fully knock out a male lion with that. And that's how they stay protected out there, because other than that, they're not very intelligent. We are now entering the last portion of our reserve, which is home to the warden's post. Now, the warden's been working on a very cool project. He's been raising Nigerian dwarf goats. So as we come around the bend, you can already see one of them on the roof there. There's a bunch more down here at the bottom. They're super cute, and this is about as big as they get. They don't get much bigger than this, which is perfect, because you can raise them in very small areas and very small communities. So we've actually been partnering with some communities in Africa to help get them started on raising these dwarf goats. And it's been very beneficial for them because through that they're able to get goat's milk, because each of these goats can produce about 2 pints of milk a day. And with that goat's milk, not only do they have it as a milk source, but then they can also turn that into products like goat's cheese and even soaps. And then they're able to make a little bit of a financial income by selling those products. And in doing so, not only does it help provide some food for that community, but also some financial stability, which helps those communities a lot, because that means they are less reliant on having to go out into the natural habitat of some of these animals that we've seen, like elephants and rhinos that are endangered. But also it means that those humans and animals are sharing less of a space, because the more they share a space, the smaller area it is to live in for both of those beings. If we want to help protect the habitats of any animals that we care about or have seen today, the easiest way to do that is just to reduce, reuse, and recycle. By reducing the amount of plastic waste that we have and recycling the ones that we do use, we are keeping that planet clean from any of that harmful waste to those animals that's within the drinking rainforest. And by switching over to reusable products like reusable water bottles, shopping bags, and straws, we're just reducing the amount of plastic in the world in general. One thing that Disney's going to be rolling out soon is we're going to be switching over to